What's up guys, how you all doing? Welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about 5 tips that I think will help you get the best from your Canon 1DX. That's right, today we're talking about a camera body that I've talked about a fair bit on this channel, and that is the Canon 1DX. Now, something which occurred to me recently when I've been looking at other cameras, and I've been doing a bit of work around the Canon R7 and I use the R6 very regularly as well. It occurred to me that the 1DX camera is becoming something that is very, very affordable. Somebody messaged me the other day and said, hey, look, I'm deciding between this camera and this camera. There's a Canon 1DX on eBay for £500. Is that a good way to go? And when I thought, whoa, that's right. You can get these now used on eBay for £500. And so that means that there's going to be more people using this camera who perhaps are a bit newer to sports photography. It's crazy that actually we're that far along now from when the original Canon 1DX was released, that this still very capable pro body is now something that's affordable for your kind of everyday sports photographer. And I'm well aware with a camera like this that's very capable, that means there might be some people who are a bit less experienced who are using it, and so I thought sharing a few simple tips to help you get the best from it might be really handy. Now, of course, at this stage, you can get a Canon 1DX Mark II, Canon 1DX Mark III, there's the R3 and the other mirrorless bodies. But this Mark I is still really, really capable. But there's a few things that I do when I use it to help me get the best from it. I'm moving straight into tip number 1. Something which I've talked about loads on this channel. Some people are going to disagree with me. I don't care. I think tip number 1 is to use back button focus with your 1DX. Now, the great thing about the Canon 1DX is it's got the built-in grip. If anyone's not clear about that, that means you can hold the camera here, you can rotate the camera into portrait mode, and it's got the grip already on there. And then it has its own set of buttons. So, for example, you've got a shutter button up here, and you've also got a shutter button here. What you also have on the back is 2 of these AF on buttons. One here on the back of the camera at the top, and one down here on the bottom right corner, or on the grip. That enables you to use back button focus when you're using your camera in landscape mode and when you rotate to portrait mode. Now, specifically when you're shooting sports, I'm a big believer in back button focus. I think it helps you so much when you're working in AI servo mode, when you're shooting fast sports, fast autofocus, fast action. I've made a whole other video about why I think you should use back button focus. So I'll tell you what, I'll link that right here. If you want to pause, go watch that, then come back to this, you can do. But for me, I think using back button focus is going to help you get the best from this camera. I really, really do. Doesn't mean it's for everybody, but I think it's the way to go. Okay, moving straight into tip number 2, and that's going to be to get yourself some fast and capable memory cards. When you're shooting with the 1DX, you're quite likely to be shooting real high speed, loads of frames, big bursts of photos, and that means the camera needs to be able to process those photos. Where a lot of people go wrong and they'll run into things like buffering issues with some cameras isn't actually the camera's fault, it's the memory card, because the memory card is not capable of keeping up with the fast write speeds of shooting all those frames so quick and those larger files, especially if you're shooting in RAW. Now, for me, the memory cards that I use with my 1DX are the Lexar Professional. This one is an 800 times, which is the 120 megabytes a second. You can get faster ones than these. I've got a faster one that I use in my R6, but I find these ones really good. They work fine with the 1DX. I don't get any buffering issues when I use these at all. I have 2 of these, so I've got 1 in each camera slot. That means that when I'm saving images to both cards at the same time, they can both keep up and there's no delay at all. I'm going to put a link in the description for these memory cards in case you want to check those out. They're the ones that I use and I do find them really, really good. Okay, moving into tip number 3, and this is kind of 2 tips in one because we're going to talk white balance and we're going to talk ISO. And by that I mean I'm going to talk about the option you have between an auto setting with these 2 and manually setting them as well. So what I'm going to say is that I find the auto white balance and the auto ISO with the Canon 1DX to be pretty decent, especially if you're shooting sports outdoors during the day. Maybe it's sunny, we can see we've got a bit of sun and shade situation going on right here. It might be changing all the time, and in those situations I find using auto white balance and auto ISO the best way to go, because then you can set your shutter speed where you want it. set your aperture where you want it, and it will automatically adjust your white balance and your ISO to get your exposure right and to get your white balance right. The reason I say it's 2-in-1 is because there are some caveats to this. The trouble is with auto ISO is it means it just completely takes control and sets the ISO level to wherever you want it to be. Now with the 1DX, I don't have any problems with shooting higher ISO levels. For me, I will comfortably shoot 6400, even 8000 if I need to. When you start moving into like the 10,000, the 12800, you will start to see a little bit of noise in your image, but to be honest, it's still not bad at all. The 1DX keeps up with that and processes noise really, really well. Now, of course, that might mean in a really dark situation that your image is slightly underexposed, but you can always play with that in post, but that gives you a way to control it slightly. Now, in some situations where I've got really consistent light, like maybe I'm under floodlights and it's pitch black and the light won't change, or especially if I'm indoors, then I will tend to just set the ISO manually. I set it to what I need it to be and I leave it. I don't have to worry about it for the entire fixture that I'm shooting. But auto ISO is good with the 1DX and you can trust it. Just to drop back to the white balance, I use auto white balance with this camera probably for like 90% of what I shoot. Occasionally, if I have a fixture where the white balance is particularly funny, like I do at some of the indoor venues I shoot, I will set the white balance manually before. There are ways you can do that with, like, you know, grayscale cards and stuff like that, or the most easy way to do it is you find something white, you take a photo of it, you adjust your white balance, you take a photo of it again, you adjust your white balance, you take a photo of it again, until you find the setting where that white thing looks white in your photos. Then you leave your white balance on that setting and you crack on and shoot your game. That's the easiest way to do it. Okay, moving into tip number 4. Now, this is to do with the autofocus case settings that you can get with the 1DX. Now, again, I've done a whole video on this one. I'll link this one at the end rather than keep on giving you other videos to go watch. I'll link that one at the end. But I have done a video all about those case settings. Now, for me, my view on how you get the best from the Canon 1DX is just to leave your camera in the case 1 setting. I've done all kinds of things where I've played around with the different cases and tried the different ones, and like I said, I did the video where I tried them all, and frankly, overall, my opinion is I just leave it in case 1. That works pretty much okay for everything, and that's what I shoot all of my sports in. So that's my opinion on what to do for getting the best thing. However, there are some situations where that might change slightly. One situation might be like if you're shooting something like, I don't know, racing, where a car is moving from one side of your screen to the other, and you want to track it and it might drop behind something. That might be a situation where you can drop to like case 2, because it maintains the focus even when it drops behind something for a period of time. But even then, I've shot situations like that in case 1 and it's worked okay. So for me to get the best from the camera, I'm still going to say just stick to case 1 and crack on with that. Okay, and tip number 5, last but certainly not least, again to do with autofocus. I'm going to say 2 bits here. First of all, I like to use AI servo mode. I use that for 90% of everything I shoot, from landscapes to portraits and to sports and movement. But especially you guys who are shooting sports, which I know a lot of you are going to be, I tend to use AI servo mode for everything that I do when it comes to sports. I will combine that with the single point autofocus and I'll set that to the center point. I get lots of people messaging me saying I'm trying to shoot sports, I'm struggling to get my player in focus, it's focusing on other things or the background, and when I get into the detail with them, they're using like the zonal autofocus or something like that. I tend to always use single point autofocus set to the center point, so I can track the subject that I'm looking at. I get my subject in the center of the frame, AI servo mode, and I just track that player and I shoot the photos. That tends to be the best way to go for me. So there you go, I hope you found that interesting. 5 tips to help you get the best from your Canon 1DX, especially when you are shooting sports. If you've got other specific 1DX questions, stick them in the comments below. I'll try and get back to answer as many of those as I possibly can. Don't forget to like this video if you found it useful. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you go check out some of the links I've got in the description below. Follow me on social media at Rob Samble Sports. Check out my Patreon page. It helps me out loads and loads on this channel. In the meantime, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next video.